1.
Hello, welcome to the Sutliffian report. Thank you for joining me, Darcy. I have a busy show, and we'll see if we go. Oh, I don't want to go over because I understand there's an announcement to be made with the Crossing the Crescent today, so we may end a few minutes early, but we have a power-packed show to go. And as this is a Christian news show, I always want to start with a reading from God's Word. And I have been going through what I had thought. I'm going through the book of Leviticus. To be honest, I thought it would be incredibly dry when I started it. It's been a while since I've read it. And I've been reading along, and a lot of it just makes sense. And you start to think about it, and it tells you a lot about who Jesus is, believe it or not. Reading Levitical law. I never thought I would find that there, but you always learn something new when you read the Word of God. But this comes from Leviticus 10:1-2. And Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, took either of them his censer, and put fire therein, and put incense thereon, and offered strange fire before the Lord, which he commanded them not. And there went out fire from the Lord, and devoured them, and they died before the Lord. Now, I was looking more into this to see what exactly they did. And there's thoughts, well, they didn't follow the directions. Okay, that's evidence when we talk about the strange fire and the order of things that they were talking about that they did. Yeah, that's it. But when you read Leviticus 16, verses 1 and 2, you really know how bad these boys were. Here's what it says in Leviticus 16, 1-2. And the Lord spake unto Moses after the death of the two sons of Aaron, when they offered before the Lord and died. And the Lord said unto Moses, Speak unto Aaron your brother, that he come not at all times to the holy place, within the veil, before the mercy seat, which is upon the ark, that he die not. For I will appear in the cloud upon the mercy seat. So Nadab and Abihu, I want you to think about this. They entered what we call the Holy of Holies. They entered that place where the Ark of the Covenant was. They weren't supposed to go in there. They were basically trying to, they were overstepping their own authority, that of their father, and that against God. It was a willful sin against God. During this time, willful sin was punished at this time. And I want you to think about that. Willful sin, things you willingly do. Us guys would call it doing the stupid thing, but a lot of times we know we're doing the stupid thing before we start. These guys made a willful sin. And at that time, if you made a willful sin, you were kicked out. You had to go live in the wilderness all on your own. You weren't allowed to be part of Israel. So that's something to think about. These guys had planned this out. It was totally coordinated between the two brothers. Its point was to elevate themselves, not God. What's the purpose of worship? It's supposed to be to glorify God. These guys were glorifying themselves. They wanted to take their dad's spot, basically. They totally missed the rituals, spoke of God's holiness and man's lack thereof. Man needed these rituals, these sacrifices to cover the stench and stain of their sins. They went through all the motions of being set aside with their dad, Aaron, and their brothers to become God's priests, but their hearts weren't there with God. They had more faith in themselves than in their father and their uncle Moses. They thought nothing of God, their father, and their uncle, except that serving them might be an opportunity to steal a higher position. This kind of thought process denies that God is personal. It's almost Islamic. He not only speaks to people, he has a relationship with them. That's what they missed. Dear Lord Jesus, you alone are worthy of my worship. You alone stand to help us to stand stronger and to speak of your love. Remove our vain nature, Lord. Work on us from within. We want those we meet to know you, to see your love from us. So change us, Lord. Help us to be the good witnesses you want us to be. In your name, amen. And let me get back to my screen. Sorry about this. Okay. And today I have a presentation that I want to do in what I call the misinformation game. And I'm going to give you a shot of what that is. This should be a little surprising, and maybe not for some. But let me just play this game out. Hopefully everybody can see. I'm calling this the misinformation game, and the masters of it, I'm going to name names and I'm going to point fingers. Hey, welcome. Thanks for joining us. The link is in the Facebook group, and it's in the live chat. So if you want to join, or I can put it there for you. All right, let me see if I still have it here. That's not it. Put the link in. Just a second, I'll send you the link. You want to join? All right. Okay. Here we go. So we're going to be talking about misinformation. So I thought it only fair to get into this straight away. Part of what I do, writing and researching on Islam, is all due to this misinformation game when you think about it. I'm only involved in this because all the information that was told to people I work with, the school that I got my master's from, was all lies. And people were willing to believe lies. And I'm a research writer. I was one before I got into this field. And, when you get into that field of research writing, I tell everybody, you go down a deep, dark hole. You find more about what you don't know. And you keep going down that hole and learning more about what you don't know. But the problem is when you find out you've been told something wrong or you've been lied to. Here, let's go down this hole. And all right. So I got this misinformation here. There's a site called Sound Vision, and they have a page called the Sharia of Human Interconnectedness. It's by Abdul Malik Mujahid. And again, this came out, believe it or not, this article came out today, which, it says published October 6th. You see that? 2022. And I just started looking today. Maybe, made me wonder when I was looking at this site. So get back here. All right. Let's take a look. On this site, they claim There are many hadith or teachings of the Prophet quoting from his sermons, which repeatedly strike at Arab pride in ancestry, and ill treatment of the others in terms of color, tribe, religion, and class. Then they go and they say, the Prophet realized the challenges of preaching the message of unity of humankind. Even in his farewell sermon, shortly before his death, he made it a point to address this issue. Now, notice there is no source there. It's just a blanket statement in his farewell sermon. Really? Where's your proof? Why didn't you cite a source? I'm having some difficulty with this.
Yes, indeed.
So the word taqwa, actually, there also is their concept of piety. That doesn't even follow. So let's read this. It says, "O people, remember that your Lord is one."
Did he freeze or is it me?
Paul's having issues.
Oh, he's having issues again.
Yeah, he froze.
All mankind is...
There you are.
Well, there he was.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. It seemed like I just got dropped out, and my internet's not going down. This is StreamYard. This is crazy. All right. I'll try this again. It says, "O people, remember that your Lord is one. All mankind is from Adam and Eve. An Arab has no superiority over a non-Arab, or a non-Arab has any superiority over an Arab. Also, a white has no superiority over black, nor does a black have any superiority over a white, except by piety and good action. Indeed, the noblest among you is the one with the best character." Well, like I said, this is not a source. This is manufactured. All right. Here's another sign this group did. Hey, ISIS, you suck. Okay. Sound Vision did this. If you want to look up the Quran, 532, you find out this actual passage. If we look up 532, we're talking about a passage that is directed towards, not to Muslims, it's directed to Jews about valuing life. See, they don't tell you the full message.
And what's even worse, it's stolen from the Talmud.
Yes. Yeah, it's stolen from the Talmud. And so we're picking on this group, Sound Vision, today, because I know, here's the other thing you should know. Under President Obama, these guys were there almost every day. Some of them, some people that worked with this organization actually had offices within the West Wing. You can see this again. If back when I was looking at the records of people going there, this information, that was the best thing Obama did, was put the visitor records out so everybody could see them. So far, under President Trump, I haven't seen that. I never saw that, and under Biden, everything is definitely hidden. But I mean, you could go and you could easily find this information. You could put it in. You could go look at the White House visitor. I missed that, but that's how you can actually prove that these guys were in the White House. It was there. I copied a lot of those records, so, and I put them in my second book, Civilization, Jihad, and the Myth of Modern Islam, which is available only in ebook form right now. Unless you want to contact me and we'll find some way to get you what you want. All right, so let me keep going here. So who is Sound Vision? Sound Vision is claimed as part of the North American Muslim Brotherhood in the explanatory memorandum. So, oh, wait a minute. Who's the Muslim Brotherhood the parent of? Al-Qaeda, Hamas, every single terrorist entity you can think of, Islamic terrorist entity you can think of, The Muslim Brotherhood is their parent. They're the ones who started them. So when you think about that, can you trust sound vision? If these are the guys or the parents of everybody wants to kill you because you're not a Muslim, do you really want to put any faith in them? Let's take a look. See if that first thing they told us that, they said there's no Arab superiority in Islam. Let's just see how accurate that is. All right. And this all falls under jihad of the pen. So let's take a look at the hadiths here. This is from, I believe these are from what's his name? Bukhari. Here we go. Narrated by Abu Hurairah. The Prophet said, Khosru will be ruined, and there will be no Khosru after him. And Caesar will surely be ruined, and there will be no Caesar after him. And you will spend the treasures in Allah's cause. He called war is deceit. Oh, wait a minute. So they're telling us they're at war, and that's why we're using this word jihad of the pen. Narrated by Abu Hurairah, Allah's apostle called war is deceit. This is from volume 4 of Bukhari, book 52, number 268. Here we go again. I don't know why they got to keep repeating the same stuff over and over again, but they do. Allah's apostle called war is deceit, volume 4, book 52, 269.
Hey, why not? All the Quran does it.
I guess that's where they get the practice of, repeating themselves repeatedly. and the problem is the word deceit repeatedly. After looking at Quran 27 with you, I'm so convinced that we can call that the copy paste chapter. That kind of blew my mind. I never imagined somebody would. Well, I've actually seen copy paste in people who do ghostwriting, where they don't think the people who are paying them are intelligent enough. Because I was indexing a book, I was able to point it out to the guy who paid for it, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, I got cheated." Well, write your own book. That's what I felt like telling him. Yeah. Well, yeah, that kind of stuff just make you think. All right. So let's talk about this lying that's going on that we're seeing. And why am I doing that? Is because we were just lied to. We were just lied to, and I'm going to prove it. I'm going to lay it all down. But first, let's look at this permissible lying. This comes from Reliance of the Traveler. And you're going to see that book in a minute. But it says, permissible lying. The prophet said, he who settles disagreements between people to bring about good or says something commendable is not a liar. This much is related by both Bukhari and Muslim, with Muslim's version, according to Kulthum, added, I did not hear him permit untruth in anything people say, except for three things. War. Wait a minute. Are Muslims always at war? I mean, if they have to hold jihad in their heart towards all non-Muslims, are they ever not at war? I mean, the whole world isn't Islamic, so according to what this is saying, all Muslims are at war. Let's keep that in mind. Again, it says right here, this is an explicit statement that lying is sometimes permissible for a given interest, scholars having established criteria defining what types of it are lawful. The best analysis of it I have seen is by Imam Ghazali. If something is attainable through both telling the truth and lying, it is unlawful to accomplish it through lying because there's no need for it. When it is possible to achieve such an aim by lying, but not by telling the truth, it is permissible to lie if attaining the goal is permissible. And obligatory if the goal is obligatory. Success in war is obligatory. Think about it. Darcy, I always put, when I go out and I talk, I always put quotes from Sun Tzu up. And I actually have them in one of my presentations. It's so important people understand this. This is what I think the Muslim Brotherhood actually did. I think somebody in there, it could have been Hassan al-Banna, actually read Sun Tzu, Art of War. And their brain grew a little bit. And for that reason, they're into the long game rather than the jihad short game. Because they'll get themselves killed if they get into the short game, or they will kill themselves. All right. So fact number one, here's that book, Reliance on Travel, where that quote just came from. Fact number one, Sharia states, if you go down to M4.2 on the bottom, it's talking about the following are not suitable matches for one another. A non-Arab man for an Arab woman. Why? It says right there, Allah has chosen the Arabs above others. Wait a minute. I thought that sound vision told us that there was no superiority. Yet in Sharia, it's documented. So who was lying? Oh, could it be the Muslim Brotherhood entity that wants to lie to us because they're at war with us? Definitely. How about this one? This is a hadith from Jami at-Tirmidhi, Volume 1, Book 46, Hadith 3605, narrated Wathila bin al-Aqsa, that the Messenger of Allah said, indeed, Allah has chosen Ismail from the children of Ibrahim, and he chose Banu Kanina from the children of Ismail. He chose the Quraysh from Banu Kinana. He chose the Banu Hashim from Quraysh, and he chose me. And this is supposed to be Muhammad saying this. Chose me from Banu Hashim. All right. So isn't there a stated preference when you think about this? And these are actually passages that are quoted when they're talking about this Arab superiority. Okay, how about this next one? This comes from Sahih Muslim 2276. Wathila bin al-Aqsa reported, I heard Allah's messenger is saying, verily Allah had granted eminence to Kanina from among the descendants of Ismail, and he granted eminence to the Quraysh among the Kanina, and he granted eminence to Banu Hashim amongst the Quraysh, and he granted me eminence. Again, this is that superiority thing. Okay. So who's telling the truth here? So far we have 3 facts that say sound vision is a liar. Well, my thing I keep telling people when you get lied to, don't trust that source again. So if you ever had thought sound vision was reliable, I'm just going to tell you anything that's related to the Muslim Brotherhood, not reliable. All right, fact number 4. Here's another hadith. This is from Tirmidhi, Volume 1, Book 46, Hadith 3608. And you get this, again, this repeated stuff you keep hearing. Narrated al-Matulib bin Abi Wada. Al-Abbas came to the messenger of Allah, and it is as if he heard something. So the prophet stood up upon the minbar and said, who am I? They said, you are the messenger of Allah, upon you be peace. He said, I am Muhammad bin Abdullah bin Abdul Muttalib. Indeed, Allah created the creation, and he put me in the best group of them. Then he made them into 2 groups. He put me in the best group of them. He made them into tribes. He put me in the best of them in the tribe. And then he made them into houses, and he put me in the best of them in tribe and lineage. So you hear this superiority claim again. All right, this is even talking about his lineage being the best. Surprise, surprise. Not a surprise. Okay. This goes on. This is another hadith. I'm just going to start it out, and I'll read where the source is in a minute. Therefore, the preferences of Arabs over other nations and the preferences of some Arabs over other Arabs is affirmed in the sacred law. Allah has even preferred some months over other months, and some days over and nights over others, as well as places. So in the same way, Allah, glorious and exalted as he, has chosen some men over others, such as the prophets over others, and even some prophets over other prophets. Muslims should not have any objection to this, because all of this returns to the wisdom of the most wise. Glorious is he who is not asked about what he does, but rather they are the ones who are asked. Here we go. Actually, this is from...
Wait. I thought they didn't make any distinction among the prophets.
Well, they say that, but they don't practice that because they make Muhammad superior.
Right,
And
and
thank you
that's
for joining us, Red.
wrong.
That's one of the things I always find funny because when we're talking about that, because Kufar mentions that every once in a while. I mean, that they don't, but they really do because they keep saying Muhammad's better. So in order to do that, they have to diss Jesus. And then they keep saying, well, they don't, they don't put down Jesus, but yet they don't call him God. They say he's not God, so they're dissing him all the time. Let's keep going here. I'll show you again where I got this. All right. Actually, I got this from Rashid Sheikh Amjad, Arabs preferred over the nations. I found this really fascinating, this whole section. So I could probably copy that. I could put that in if anybody wants that source. Just let me know and I'll try and post it in later. It's obligatory on a Muslim to believe that Arabs are preferred to other nations because there is proof for it. However, this is not one of the pillars of our religion, such as if someone rejected this, they would be considered outside of Islam. But if one does reject this, one has sinned for not believing in it because it is an affirmed matter according to clear religious authenticated hadith. Also, this issue is not something that is commonly known among most Muslims. So for this one should not hasten to blame one who disagrees with it. It is necessary rather to tell him about the issue. Now, there's a problem with that statement. Under Islam, you're not allowed to have your own private interpretation of Islam. You're not. So you have to be told, you have to be corrected, and then that person who's being told has to accept it. There's no roundabout way to go. They have to accept Arab superiority. So as I'm going to go back here, remember what they said. They said there's no Arab superiority in this statement here, that it didn't exist. And then, the funny thing is, we're going to talk about this again, and I want to go back into why I'm talking about this, which is what I didn't do, and I had planned to, and I did it kind of out of order. Last week, I talked about how to talk to a liberal about Islam, and I read this piece. It says Sharia literally means law. It is Islamic law. It rules over all of the followers in Islam and claims to be the rules for not only them, but everyone else also. Since accepting this as real may be too hard to comprehend, let's build on what you do know. Keep thinking back to your high school days of 9th and 10th grade. At least in New York State, that's when we teach world history and global history. During this time, students learn about socialism and communism. They learn about how it portrays freedom and actually steals and eats the freedom that the people had. Social studies teachers will teach about fascism also, which is a form of socialism based on national identity. Nazism gets taught. It's a form of socialism based on racial identity. Marxism is a form of socialism based on class identity. And Sharia then will be a form of socialism based on religious identity. So you think about that. Islam, however, we think about, so Nazism is based on race. Fascism is based on nationalism. Islam includes those two things, in its religion-based socialism. It includes these two items as social structures in a superiority. So I'm going to talk about, this is going to be just part 2 this week, and I'm going to talk about race next week, because we're talking about how do you talk to a liberal about Sharia? We keep using this word socialism, one of those things the communists like, but when they start to think about structure being their social structure as them at the bottom of the world as far as social class, just because they're not a Muslim, now they have to start thinking, hey, that might not be a good thing. And what happens in socialism? Who gets killed? Is it the people at the top? No, it's the people at the bottom. And in socialism, usually it's the people who have an education. Yeah, that's the other part. If you have an education under socialism, you're usually killed off because you know how to respond. Think about it. So these are the Sharia lovers that we're talking about, and they're incorporating ethnic superiority into this. This is the stuff that gets scary to me when I start to think about, what does it mean? when they're incorporating all this. And this just starts to get me when I start looking at all of this stuff happening. It just seems to say a lot. Now, I can't believe I'm already at half past, but so here's the other things. Again, I was talking about misinformation today. That's the theme I want to go on. And because of that, I have a few more topics to go, which are a little bit broader than just Islam. But this is, I have to say, when I've been looking and working on this stuff I've been seeing this week is just, there's just so much out there that has to do, again, with information. I'll say misinformation. When the misinformation gets exposed, that's the stuff that makes you sit there and go, oh, I mean, how come I didn't know that? Those are things you want to know. So Project Veritas, one of the things I love about them is they do these undercover videos. And why do I like them? Well, when you're doing undercover videos and you go out and you expose something that is so important, let's say you expose a teacher for indoctrinating children, and he's bragging about it. Would parents want to know? Absolutely. What happens? In this case, because of where it happened, let me just say, action was kick butt swift. I don't have a meta reaction to explain that to, but I'm just going to share this with you, and I hope that you enjoy this video as much as I did. And then I will show you the whole response. Let me just put myself on mute.
You got to go out to the people who it's not directly affecting.
Yeah, if you're gonna throw a brick,
yeah.
throw it.
Well, at the people that I can actually do and looking at change.
Yeah.
How did you approach them? Like this time, I think like a good 2 months.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, how are they organized? Like, what's their purpose? My kids, we don't stand up for the parents. I tell my students that all the time.
Yeah.
I'm like, guys, nothing's gonna change until you guys are ready. That's what my job is.
Yeah.
To prepare you to make sure that you don't mess up this world too much.
Our undercover journalist met up with
or something. I can get my burn down the entire system. The only thing that's a problem here is that House Bill 1775 or something. I can get my license revoked for it, for being too woke. I broadcasted it too much last semester. So.
Yeah.
Like, eventually you want to like remove Christianity from or religion from progressive thought because like religion is inherently hierarchical.
Deep inside the Sooner State in Tulsa, Oklahoma, we caught up with an 8th grade English teacher from Will Rogers High School who still prides himself on his radical activist fame on TikTok more than he does teaching the students.
I have a rather large TikTok following.
Yeah.
I'm an authority figure, so I'm going to give out a Christmas message of like, hey, if your parents don't love and support you for who you are this Christmas, them, I'm your parents now. I love you. Drink some water. Proud of you.
What's wrong with that?
I said the
Yes, that is Tyler Wren, who used to be known as Tyler Parks. He used to teach at the Owasso 8th grade center until he resigned last April after these TikTok videos were highlighted by libs of TikTok.
Hey, if your parents don't love and accept you for who you are this Christmas, fuck them. I'm your parents now. I'm proud of you. Drink some water. I love you. Bye.
Parents were outraged. Many took to the internet.
TikTok, posted by a now former Owasso 8th grade teacher, is getting national attention for his pro-LGBTQ stance. It's what he says about parents that's made some upset. This is in the middle of a proposed law putting limits on sex education in schools.
Well, thank God he's out of this school in this district, but who the hell knows where he's going to wind up next and indoctrinate those kids?
Well, our undercover Project Veritas journalists found him. Tyler got a new teaching job in Tulsa at Will Rogers High School, home to some 927 students, about 11 miles away from his previous school. Tyler still doubles down on his anarchist beliefs.
I mean, I don't know how. I'm pretty far left.
I am an anarchist.
Home of the Ropers, the Will Rogers High School dating back to 1939, was renovated to become a state-of-the-art college prep facility for students and teachers. Will Rogers College, Middle and High School provides all students with opportunities to develop the academic, social, psychological, personal, and critical thinking skills necessary to get to and through college and to prepare them for career and personal success in a global society.
They couldn't stop you. Obviously, you're teaching, so that's.
No, they definitely couldn't.
Yeah. Well,
Owasso was like, they were super, like, they didn't stand for the parents, which I get.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Oklahoma, so what are you going to do?
Yeah.
But they definitely didn't, like, nothing went on my record. Like,
Good.
You know, I could resign instead, so it didn't, like, garnish my teaching experience.
Yeah. Well, that's cool, man. Well, I'm glad you're in the fight.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Tyler's 2021 social media was filled with praise for the devil and anti-American rhetoric. Now, he deleted that content, prepping for his new teaching job. However, his TikTok page backdoors his secret curriculum. Here is a list of books that Tyler wants to hide from parents on his TikTok link tree. And here, he also claims his wife could put a hex on people. Now, Tyler's recent TikToks attempt to portray him as just an alternative teacher, dabbling with wearing neckties and mocking accusations that he indoctrinates his students. Over the summer, Tyler asked for money via GoFundMe to purchase, quote, inclusive young adult books for his classroom, while wearing elaborate costumes, including dressing up as a millennial Coraline from the movie.
I will say, Gen Z is like super progressive.
Oh, I know.
I taught in Missouri last year, not last year, but 2 years ago. I taught a philosophy 101 class. We took a political quiz. Half the kids were like radical progressives.
Yeah.
I am definitely not part of Antifa.
Yeah.
As a joke comment.
Yeah.
And they latched onto it like, oh my God, he's Antifa.
Despite his denials of being an Antifa sympathizer, Tyler sure talks like he supports the radical agenda. The Antifa movement is defined by the Anti-Defamation League as being, quote, a decentralized, leaderless movement composed of loose collections of groups, networks, and individuals. Because there is no unifying body for Antifa, it is impossible to know how many adherents are currently active.
The only thing that's a problem here is that House Bill 1775 or something, I can get my license revoked for being too woke.
But I think it's,
You know what I mean?
You're not overly, there's ways to.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Like, trust me, I want to burn down the entire system.
Yeah. There's ways to introduce these ideas without broadcasting it. You know what I'm saying?
And I broadcasted too much last semester. So.
Yeah.
Hi, Tyler. This is James O'Keefe, House Bill 1775. I can get my license revoked for it.
Sir, I don't talk about religion in my classroom.
You don't talk about religion in your classroom.
I do not. I teach English.
You did say here that you could get your license revoked for it. Why would you get your license revoked?
If I speak about religion in a classroom, I can get it revoked. Yes.
Okay.
But I don't.
You've never talked about religion in the classroom.
Never.
The only thing that's a problem here is that House Bill 1775 or something, I can get my license revoked for being too woke. I broadcasted too much last semester. So.
Yeah.
Once again, secret curriculums are pushed by radical teachers that are not being transparent with you about what they teach your children. That's a problem that must be confronted in our country. We want transparency.
I want you to think about what you just saw. What would be the correct action? I'd love to hear your comments, because I will tell you, I'll share with you a video, but I'd love to hear people who are parents, who are grandparents. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Anybody's willing to contribute, please go ahead.
Well, me being a parent, I'm glad my kids are not in school anymore, because that would just make them bonkers. And I'd probably wind up slapping them.
You know, I sit there and I look at this, just the fact that this guy is allowed in a classroom. I mean, you know, when I was a kid, you couldn't actually do that. You couldn't actually become a teacher and appear like that, physically appear like that. You just couldn't. And the idea with your even tattoos would have been an issue back then. But I mean, unless you were military. But I look at that, the way his appearance, you wouldn't have got hired when we were younger. But you know, the whole agenda is the part that bothers me the most. To think that he tells people he's teaching English and he has an agenda to push, which tells you he's not just teaching English. And that I mean, I don't know how you can cover the English topics and this, because I don't know if you've seen what has to be taught in English. You can't, there's no time for that if you're doing your job. There's absolutely no time. So it's dangerous what he's doing. Anybody else? All right. Then if no one else has a comment, I'm going to share with you what I consider the fastest response I have ever seen, ever, on to a project video, Veritas video. This should blow your mind. This is the Oklahoma Secretary of Education, Ryan.
We have many great teachers in Oklahoma. Tyler Wren is not one of them. Seeing this new video where Tyler talks about indoctrinating kids, violating HB 1775, being an anarchist, and trying to undermine our entire education system, that is not going to be accepted here in the state of Oklahoma. We have a teacher that a year ago said F parents. That this is unacceptable in our schools. Again, he is masquerading as a teacher when in reality he's a liberal activist trying to indoctrinate our kids. Deborah Giss has allowed this into her school, knowing his background, knowing what he said publicly. Superintendent Hoffmeister has pushed and allowed this type of indoctrination in our schools, and we cannot allow this any further. I am asking the State Board of Education to revoke his teaching certificate. He has violated the law and said openly that he wants to indoctrinate our kids rather than provide them the academic background that they need to be successful in life. In Oklahoma, we will emphasize academics. We will ensure that our students have the ability to be successful, and we will not tolerate indoctrination and political activism in our classroom. This isn't left or right issue. It's about protecting our kids and ensuring that they have an education that allows them to be successful without political indoctrination.
It's because of men like that who respond that quick that we can do something. We can make people safer. Most people do not respond as quick as this Secretary of Education in Oklahoma. Now, the only thing that he can do, which would really damage him from not teaching someplace, is to pull that certification. Because whenever he goes someplace to get a job in education, and now he has, at the very least, an adjudication on his credential, on his certification, if they allow him to keep it, which I firmly believe they will not in the state of Oklahoma. I mean, the Secretary of State went so far as to name the district superintendent as being responsible for this. And then, just so you know, Project Veritas tried to contact the principal. Because in general, teachers are hired by administrators, not district superintendents. So the question is, how did he get his job? Well, and it's pretty truthful. When you're looking for a job in education, if you know someone someplace else, you could probably find a way in. That's pretty truthful. A lot of it's in who you know. Right now, throughout education, throughout the states, there's a lot of positions open. Why? Because we have too many wieners out there too afraid to go out and work with kids today. I'm not saying it's an easy job. It's not. But when you have a lot of people who are liberals, they're too afraid to come out of their houses still. so that's where they're at. I kid you not, that is actually still a problem. I still laugh at that when I think about it, but that is still a problem. So let's go on. I have that one. I have to say, it makes me think. I also want to talk about this war that's going on within Iran, and it's the hijab war, the war of the hijab, which is what Al Qaeda called it. The war of the hijab, the battle for the hijab, is a war that Al Qaeda sponsors repeatedly. When I say sponsors, they will stand behind those who try to enforce the hijab. They will help them in any way they can. That's what they claim. Now, this is an important understanding because who is the ones who are the parents of Al Qaeda? Again, the Muslim Brotherhood. Start thinking about that. The Muslim Brotherhood in general are, as a whole, I should say, are Sunnis. You would think that Sunnis and Shiites wouldn't get along, which is what Iran is. It's full of Shiites. But the truth is, they get along every time they're going against someone else that is not a Muslim. Oh, so they're unified. Yes, that is the thing to think about. They're entirely unified. And this becomes incredibly important. Why? Because this rule about the hijab that says you must wear one. In my last book, The Cancer of Civilization Jihad, I come to the conclusion it really depends on the definition of hijab, which your definition is. And that is, I was a conclusion I never expected to come to. I don't necessarily think it's 100% accurate. That's the best I could come to, because there is some middle ground. When you hear the description of a hijab, you sit there and wonder if, when you look at the Quran, when you're reading it, we've been doing that. Kufar and I read that passage. We're going through Dissecting the Quran series. If you're not listening to that, that is something you definitely want to tune into, because we're going through the Quran verse by verse. And one of the things we talked about when we went over these passages in the Quran was, what does the word ornaments mean? There's nothing here. And it could be hair. Ornaments could be a lot of different things because it's not defined. Well, the ornaments have to be covered. What are we talking about? Could they be earrings? It's not defined. This war that's going on, 42 people now dead, 700 now locked up to protect the government. One of the things that we have to remember when we're talking about Iran is they have to fight for their own freedom. That's what keeps Americans free. The people here, our ancestors, for those of us who had relatives like myself, who had relatives who were fighting in the American Revolution, we fought for our freedom. And if you don't fight for your freedom, your children can never say, so-and-so, my dad, my grandpa, my ancestor fought so we could be free. That has deep meaning that stays within your ancestors. It's incredible. So the Americans fought to be free. Guess who didn't? Our northern friends here, Canada. Canada is pretty much a socialist country. It's been under the monarchy of England for a long, long time, and they still haven't removed the offices to the Queen or to the Crown. Yet they claim they're not part of England anymore. Claim, or United Kingdom, they claim. So who's their royalty that they have these offices to the Crown? I don't think they know themselves. Because again, they never fought for freedom. You want to see a failure for fighting for freedom where we interfered? I say we interfered because Bush was saying with Iraq and Afghanistan that we were there to make the world safer for democracy. Take a look at Afghanistan and Iraq today. Okay, so the Americans left. Where's their democracy? If we were there to make the world safe for democracy, do you think they would keep it? And the answer should be, yeah, if they wanted it, but they didn't. It has to be the people have to make that choice to fight for their freedom. This is one of the things Trump was trying to emphasize. He was trying to make, because if you do an embargo, if you do something to make the economy in a country unstable, or, when you think about that, if the government can't function well because they don't have the money, the ones who are really suffering in truth are the people that are not in the government. So it forces the people, the average person, to start to do something because you can't survive on what the government's allowing you to have. I think that was the wisest choice that Trump did during his time period. And it's actually, what kills me is the liberals are talking about that policy he had with Iran. Today, they're talking about it. I mean, I saw an article today on this topic with how he treated Iran and how important it was that his economic policy forced the people, the people to start saying, away with you, government. This time, I mean, it's under Biden, and Biden had nothing to do with this. In fact, he's trying to encourage the government, which is dangerous to the Iranian people. That's important to understand. So he's trying to make friends with the government. Trump wasn't doing it. He was doing the opposite. He's trying to make friends with the people by financially oppressing the government. The people understand that. They knew it wasn't against them, and they've come out and they've been stating stuff like this. You want to see problems with government, start looking at that. I have an article to share here, and I want to get into that one too. Just pull this one up. And I have a new one. I'll pull this one up first. Here we go. All right, pull another one up. For some reason that did not. Oh, the joy of having things in different spots, and sometimes things work and sometimes they don't. Open hyperlink. Here we go. This comes from the Daily Mail, and I'm just going to put it up on the screen. I thought this was a surprising article. This article is it comes again from the Daily Mail, and it was a surprise for me. I didn't expect. I mean, I look for stuff when I'm looking for it through Jihad Watch and a few other things, but this one really caught my eye. I didn't expect it. ISIS link of killers who murdered British couple and fed them to crocodiles. Suspects accused of South African horror had Islamic State leaflets texted about killing the kuffar. Dr. Kuffar, does that bother you? Let's get into this. This is by Chris Jewers and Jamie Pyatt. The alleged killers of a British couple who were brutally murdered before their bodies were fed to crocodiles had suspected links to ISIS, according to reports. Respected botanist Rod Saunders, 74, and his wife Rachel, 63, were in South Africa when they were targeted, kidnapped, beaten to death, and then put in their sleeping bags and thrown in a river infested with the beasts. Saifuddin Islam Del Vecchio, 39, and his wife Bibi Fatima Patel, 28, and their lodger at the time, Musa Ahmad Jackson, 35, all deny kidnap, murder, robbery, and theft. They are currently standing trial at Durban High Court. It's now been revealed that detectives found pamphlets relating to the Islamic State terrorist group, along with the ISIS flag, at the defendant's home when they were arrested. Local reporters say, according to the Times, Del Vecchio, who converted to Islam, and Patel, whose father is a Muslim cleric, have both been included on South African security forces watch list. Del Vecchio had been caught on a quad bike watching planes at Durban King's Shaka's airport for more than 2 years before the murders. What's more, messages on the WhatsApp and Telegram found on their phones showed the suspects discussed plans to kill the non-believers, the kuffar, to abduct their aliases, to destroy infrastructure, and put fear in the hearts of the kuffar. Wait, who's supposed to put fear in the hearts of the kuffar? Do you know who that is? That's Allah. Allah's supposed to do that.
Hey, I am insulted that they used my name.
Gee, I was waiting for you to say something.
Sorry, I had to go to the men's room.
Yeah. So, yeah. So they're all about killing the kuffar. I mean, here we have people. I mean, just to think about that, their goal was to kill the non-believers, and that's just kind of freaky when you think about it. That was their entire goal.
I wonder where they learned that from.
Oh, and this is the question that so now I'm having problems with it. Seems I gotta go buy that new computer. Now it seems like everything's going wrong right now. The background's even disappeared. So I think this is the interesting point that Robert Spencer continually brings up. Where did they get these ideas? Why are these? This is a convert. He converted to Islam to marry his wife. Where did he get this idea? Could it be he read the Quran? Surah 9, what? 9:5? I mean, talked about killing the non-believer. Surah 9:5. Let me just get there.
No, that's 929.
9:20. Well, I think it's
9:5.
9:5.
Breaking the treaty.
So kill the polytheists wherever you find them and take them as captives and besiege them and lay in wait with every kind of ambush. So if they repent and perform the prayer and give them illegal alms, leave their way free. 9:29, you said?
Yeah. So did you say that he became a Muslim because he married a Muslima?
Yes.
Okay.
Here we go. 9:29. Engage in war with those who do not believe in Allah and in the last day, and do not forbid what Allah and his messenger forbid, and do not believe in the religion of and do not believe in the religion of the truth among those. You know, that passage always makes me laugh. Do not believe in the religion of the truth. I'm sorry. So you've been told there's a religion of truth, and you're not to believe in it. Really, you want to trust this book? Some of these things just make you go, "What?" All right. This next article. Again, we're talking about this. The theme here is misinformation, and this is another article from the. It's about UK. Now, the last one was people from the UK. Charity. This comes from the Evening Standard. Charity Commission probes Brighton Mosque after trustees' terrorism conviction. So think about that. One of their trustees of the mosque has a terrorism conviction. Do you think the mosque should be investigated? Absolutely. Because if their trustee believes these things, whoa. So what do they
I think all mosques should be investigated.
You're not hearing me disagree. I because again, the concept that I mean, there's a misperception out there. Some people use this word Islamism or Islamist. Politics can be separated from Islam. Muslims will tell you that's impossible. Well, the Sirras and the Hadiths tell you that's impossible. So where are they getting the idea that it's possible? I don't know. I don't know. I can't figure that out, especially when I consider the people that are out there telling this. Yeah. Right. So let me get into this article. This article, again, it's called Charity Commission Probes Brighton Mosque After Trustees Terrorism Conviction. The mosque was issued an official warning earlier this year after former trustee Abu Bakr Dag Hayes was convicted of encouraging terrorism. This is by Katie Boyden. The Charity Commission has launched an investigation and appointed interim manager to the Brighton Mosque and Muslim Community Center. The regulator opened the inquiry due to concerns resulting from a failure to resolve a dispute. On September 28th, an interim manager, Andrew Wilkinson of Shakespeare Martineau, took charge of the management and operation of the charity to exclusion of the parties in dispute. He will identify and appoint new trustees to the charity. Think about this. An Islamic charity needs new trustees. So it sounds like a non-Muslim entity has been hired. Think about that, to appoint new trustees. In May of 2022, the mosque in East Sussex was issued with an official warning after former trustees Abu Bakr Dag Hayes was convicted of encouraging terrorism. On November 1st of 2020, Dag Hayes gave an unsolicited speech at the mosque encouraging people to take part in violent jihad following the death of two of his sons in Syria. The speech was delivered after evening prayers when approximately 50 people were present, including at least one trustee, children, and young adults. The Charity Commission said the trustee was present, did not intervene or attempt to minimize the impact of the content of the speech. On January 19th this year, Dag Hayes was convicted of encouraging terrorism under the Terrorism Act of 2006. This is in the UK. A spokesman for the Charity Commission said the commission determined that the trustees knew or ought to have known the risk this individual posed to the charity. And they say, however, due to an ongoing dispute at the charity about control of its administration and management, there's an increased risk that inappropriate actions will not be taken to protect the charity from further undue risk of harm. Wait. What's the undue risk of harm? That people will stop giving to it? It does make you kind of think. And what's going on? What are they worried about? I mean, maybe somebody will take the money and use it for jihad. Hopefully not. One of the things that never ceases to amaze me when I talk about Islam, this is never, like I said, never ceases to amaze me and bother me, is that Islam doesn't just have a problem with Christianity or Judaism. It has a problem with every single other religion. So when I was talking earlier about Islam being a form of socialism, keep thinking that it's trying to kill off or subdue all other religions. So this article comes, I'm going to take this and put it in the chat room. This link, you definitely want to share this out. I'm going to ask that you put it out on your Facebooks, on your wherever you can, share this link. I think people need to see these kind of things more often. Let's see. Sharon, I'm 100% with you on those terms. I'll say now this link. In Pakistan, this is from First Post. In Pakistan, Muslim landlord strips Hindu woman worker naked, hangs her upside down, beats her, rapes her with henchmen. This is the landlord. October 3rd, this came out. New Delhi. She went to ask for her salary, but this Hindu laborer in Pakistan, Bawalfar, got brutalized by her Muslim landlord. The woman, a wife of a bonded laborer. Now, that term, bonded laborer, usually pretty much means slave, was hoisted upside down, beaten, gang raped by 6 or 7 men. This is yet another instance which stands testimony to the absolute dismal record of Pakistan when it comes to atrocities against minorities, especially Hindus. The incident took place at Balfar in Punjab's Pakistan after the woman Savitri Bai went to the Muslim landlord Muhammad Akram to ask for wages. Akram later went to the woman's house with weapons, threatened her. He then kidnapped her. She was gang raped and beaten. In the video, Savitri Bai said, "He kidnapped me and took me to an unknown place. Over there, they stripped me and kept beating me." She further said that they had covered her face and kept beating her. She had gone there to get wages, but instead of clearing the dues, what they owed her, they told her that she was trash and they for asking for money. And this is just, it doesn't matter what faith structure you are, this is the response. Now, this next one I'm going to put in, and I keep saying they're against all faith structures. And this is important to understand. I'm not saying it, they are. And you can see this every day, and I wish to God you couldn't see this. I mean, I wish that we wouldn't see this. I wish nobody would see this. I don't care. So this one comes from ABC News. This is about last week's Kabul school blast. And for those of you who are unaware, last week there was, let me just read this. Death toll in last week's Kabul school blast climbs to 52. A tally compiled by the Associated Press shows that last week's suicide bombing at a Kabul education center killed as many as 52 people, more than double the death toll acknowledged by the Taliban officials. This is by Fazl Rahman Faizi. This came out the 3rd of October. Islamabad. Last week's suicide bombing at Kabul Education Center killed as many as 52 people, more than twice the death toll acknowledged by the Taliban. Dozens more were wounded in Friday's blast, making it one of the bloodiest attacks since the Taliban seized control of Afghanistan more than a year ago. There was no claim of responsibility, but the Islamic State group extremists have carried out a series of attacks against Taliban targets and ethnic minorities. The blast struck at a time when hundreds of teenage students were taking practice exams at the Kaji Higher Education Center in the Afghan capital. The explosion blew the roof off the building. Taliban security officials initially said 19 people had been killed, then revised the death toll to 25 over the weekend. However, the AP spoke directly to relatives of 39 of those killed and obtained the names of others about the remaining 13. The overwhelming majority of victims were girls and women. So this doesn't have to be Shiite. It could simply be Taliban saying you're older than 10, you don't need an education anymore. And under Islam, if you're not Islamic enough, that's cause enough for them to kill or attack. The laws on apostasy are extremely clear, and this is where it gets scary. The only ones who are, they talk about you not being, not conforming. If you don't agree with one little point, you can be labeled an apostate. It's not just leaving Islam. It's the concept of not being Islamic enough. When you read the Sharia and you see this, it's a little mind-numbing the first time you read it. You'll have to read it a couple times, but it's there. Not Islamic enough. A lot of people who are followers of Islam, lovers of Sharia here in the United States and Western countries would not be deemed Islamic enough. And I say that because they might be driving down the road, and when no one's watching, they might like the idea of listening to music. Oh, that has instruments in it. All of a sudden, they're not Islamic enough. They might do everything else they're supposed to, but in the Western society, because it's free, they're free to do things that they wouldn't do in their country, in an Islamic country, because they would be judged not enough and could have something severe happen to them. Some of these things are just too shocking. to accept. Here's another one. Let me see if I can get this one up, and I can share. I'm hoping I can share this one. I saw this article, and let me just see if I can share a page. This is but I'm going back to a little bit more towards misinformation, and Biden's doing a crackdown on things, and this is related to, again, misinformation. So the FBI, which we no longer can trust or put any faith in, was asked for video or whatever they have on the attack on an anti-abortion place, which these are considered pro-life centers. These are places that will educate women about the baby that's growing within them. So somebody firebombed one of these places, and the FBI is refusing to communicate with and share the information. This comes off of a Tucker. There's a small video of Tucker that's been shared out on Twitter. So I'm sharing it because it was shared on Twitter, and I thought this was just incredible.
We're facing essentially a moral hurricane in our country. The FBI has gone from abdicating their duty to provide equal justice under the law to pro-life people like us to downright attacking us. And that was our concern when we filed suit against the Amherst Police Department taking charge of the investigation to get our video back so we can start to prosecute whoever the perpetrators are. We came out, and I was concerned that they would engage character assassination. That is the FBI. That would be their next step. Over 70 attacks on pro-life organizations across the country, 0 arrests. I mean, look, it's naive to think that the largest law enforcement agency on the globe with the best forensic technology known to man doesn't know not a single person who's engaging in these attacks. If it's not the FBI doing it, they certainly know who is, and they're choosing not to make arrests. And we need equal protection under the law. Look, Jane's Revenge is the abortion terrorist group, the pro-abortion terrorist group that's taking responsibility for these attacks, and they're getting a pass. And I'd say, look, Jane's Revenge is the Democratic Party's new KKK, and the new cross in the front yard is burning down pregnancy centers. But instead of denigrating the personhood of Black people, they're denigrating the personhood of preborn boys and girls and anybody that seeks to stand up for them.
Well, you can't allow fire bombings in your country, period. I mean, Congress should shut the FBI down over the. And really quick, were you really told that you could not have your own surveillance tapes back because those tapes of a firebombing of your property might inspire right-wing terrorism? I mean, it doesn't seem real.
Yes. Oh, yes. We're in the process of suing. I mean, there's litigation. There's active litigation happening right now to get our video back. And so we can just see it. In fact, the town attorney representing the police department went so far as to say, to characterize pro-life people supporting us as AK-47 gun-toting people going around bombing and killing people. They're vilifying us.
Man, I grew up in this country. I'm trying not to be hysterical or alarmist. You don't want to make something sound worse than it is, but the facts alone in this story are really stunning to the conscience. They really are. The Reverend James Harden joining us tonight. Thank you.
Now, I've worked for Compass Care, and I've helped do various things to help the anti-abortion community, the pro-life community. I've done various things to help. And the thought that the FBI would be assisting and aiding and abetting in the protection of criminals who commit serial arson, serial attacks using, I'm going to say munitions, weapons of mass destruction, which is what a firebomb can be considered. Because this was a firebombed facility, and it's not just one. There's been many that have been firebombed, and the FBI is hiding video. My bet is, unless you watch that Tucker tape, you're not familiar with this. And that's what I'm getting out. This misinformation that's out there, this censorship of important information that is currently happening is incredibly troublesome. It's the reason I do what I do, because I don't think people get this information. I don't. This is why I broadened my scope beyond just talking about Islam. There's an awful lot. I can spend 2 hours on Islam easily. When I felt God telling me to change the name so I could talk about more things, I had no idea COVID was coming down the road. And I look at this stuff. What happened? I mean, we talk about the people on the with the boots on the ground are supposed to be the good guys. Okay, so where are those good guys protecting? Right? Who's the ones who took the tape? Those are the boots on the ground. Who's the ones not letting them get it? We're not talking about GS 13, 14, 15, unless they're making a policy that doesn't allow them to return a video if it's a fire bombing. Again, these are unconstitutional orders if they're policy. I have some serious issues to think that this is going on in a country that's supposed to be run by the Constitution. I don't know how people who work for the FBI can watch something like this and say they now work for a respectable organization. If I was working for the FBI at this point, I would say it's time to move to a different agency. Let me move to a different one. And that's one of the things that you can do in federal service. You can transfer from one organization to another and pretty much keep your level of income. But this kind of stuff, it's no matter how I look at it, it's just appalling to think that that can go on. I mean, I've been watching. There's another thing I watched this week that I should talk to you about, is that there are people now coming out, medical professionals that are now. I'm sorry. Did somebody want to say something?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I was if to transfer to another agency. How do you know that those other those other agencies are under the same sort of authority?
As long as they're transferring, I mean, you can that's one of the things that's interesting. They could probably go from a DH, FBI is under DHS, but they could probably transfer to a DOD agency. That's what I'm saying they could probably do, because they have those
Department
skill
of Defense,
sets.
isn't that under the president also?
Yes, I'm not saying as long as they are federal service is what I'm getting at. They're all, yeah.
Oh,
The
okay.
issue is trying to stay. I mean, if you are FBI right now and you want a decent reputation, I mean, I honestly, I have a hard time saying the boots on the ground are bad. But when you listen to this video, the ones who took the video were the boots on the ground guys we usually trust. And the ones who aren't giving it back, I mean, is there... I have serious issues to thinking that somebody GS 13 and above would be making a decision on this. That it just sounds dirty no matter how you look at it, and it's becoming policy, which is even worse because that's an unconstitutional order to not allow due process. And then those people who are following these orders are breaking the law. That again, you're not when you are in federal service, you're run by the Constitution. You swear to defend America from enemies, foreign and domestic. If your boss is acting against the Constitution, he's a domestic enemy, which means you should have to report him to protect America. It sounds horrible. The very concept really bothers my thought process to think that that's where we're at. But with the FBI, with the actions we're seeing, where they're invading people's homes, stealing, taking guns. This is the stuff I mean. I know I didn't do a show last week, and that was one of the things I was going to talk about. They were going into people's houses and just showing up and saying, "We want your guns." Like what? Yeah, and there was like several different cases. They were just showing up and doing that. I have no problem with this. This may sound some people might. I don't like the idea of somebody getting red flagged, but there are times when that's important. So I mean by red flag, somebody calls and says you are suicidal or you're a danger to others, and somebody shows up and says, "We've just got a phone call saying this, this, and this." If they don't have anything verifiable, that's a problem. Well, let's say they have a printout of that kind of situation where you've said all these things in a chat room, or you've emailed them or something. That's something else. Or they have video of you making these threats or whatever. Okay, they have actual proof. Then I would say they have a right to go in and to make you safer, remove the weapons that you have at your disposal. And I'm looking at that kind of, I don't like that. I really don't like that concept, because America is founded on, I think that Second Amendment is the thing that's keeping some restraint still. But yeah, it's just crazy when I think about how much we've gone into the muck with this current situation, and it just kind of blows my mind to think that we are that far down the road. Anybody else have something to say?
Yeah, while you're talking there, I'm sitting here thinking, it does take a lot of courage for the lower ranking people to question authority. I mean, even when I was in the Marine Corps, we're told we can disobey an order if it's unlawful, but you will be facing a court martial. You will be, and you just hope that you come out clean, or else, dot, dot, dot.
So the question I have for you, when you're told that, I mean, basically you're praying it never happens.
Yeah.
But being told that, you now know you have an obligation to do that at the same time. Is that correct?
Correct. But not all people are courageous in that way.
I agree.
I mean, we see it now with like Islam and interfaith dialogues. I mean, I've been to them, and more people are more willing to go along and bash me and my guys rather than speak up or prove me wrong. And that's just one example.
It's a scary thing when people won't stand up. I guess that's the thing that bothers me the most is when people aren't willing to stand up. I'm only doing what I'm doing because I think we have to. We're in this part of life, this cycle where we're at in the United States. We're now forced into a corner where you absolutely have no choice but to stand up. Now, I've been doing this show. It was called Civilization Jihad Awareness before. This show has been on the air for we're into our sixth year. 6 years at this. And before that, I did about 100 guest spots, and I'm more convinced now than ever that there's no such thing. I mean, the scriptures tell us there's no such thing as an innocent bystander. But I'm telling you right now, you cannot play the game of being an innocent bystander. You can't sit back and say, "Oh, it's I'm not going to be involved." You can't do that at this point. You can't do that, because when you do that, you give up your humanity. And today, the risk of doing that, to the harm it's a very real risk of harm to you, to your family, to all your loved ones, by not taking the actions you need to do. I'm picking on incidents like this. Somebody might have gone by that night when this happened, saw the firebomb, and my bet is no one called anything in. Oh, because they didn't call it and they saw it, they didn't call it in. Let's say that organization that was there to protect the unborn, somebody goes and gets their baby now aborted because that organization's no longer there. again, that is a real harm. It could have been your child, your grandchild. It could have been somebody. I mean, there's a lot of possibles here. You can't be silent anymore. The Bible tells us you can't. There's no such thing as an innocent bystander. It doesn't exist. All right. That's very, very clear in the Bible. There are no innocent bystanders. This is why, again, why I do what I do. You can't stand back, watch things happen, and say nothing. You got to stand up and you got to do what you can do. I understand that when you're in a position, it's very difficult to say some things. That's not a question. I mean, I was an educator for 20 some years, and there are things you have to be quiet about. You have to be careful of how you say things. Not denying that at all. Hi, Leah. The issue to me is that you absolutely must say something now. When I was teaching social studies, I exposed that the textbook we had 25 lies on less than 20 pages, all about Islam. Oh, so what happened to me as a result? Here's the truth. The guy who was over the department didn't want to see me at all. Didn't want me to expose the lies in that textbook. Got mad when I did, to the point where he really didn't want to see me even come down to the office when I was required to come down. Oh, when I'm required to, he doesn't want me there to do regents exams and things like that. Didn't bother me at all. It's less work for me, but it sent a message to everybody else. They got scared watching this. The idea that you could get in trouble for sharing truth. That's what they all knew it. I mean, I work with, I don't know how many 50s to 70 social studies teachers in my district. I don't know how many. I honestly don't. And they saw that. And when they figured out what had happened, they all knew. So Sutliff told the truth. And because of his detailed expose, here's the funny part. The guy who got this textbook, he agreed with me. He agreed with me it should be exposed. The guy who was having a hard time was the guy who didn't order the textbook. So he really had his business was he's upset that someone was telling the truth. I'm all for us exposing things. I'm not saying we need to go out and scream people's names, put people, but we got to get the truth out. In the case of this firebombing, the namby-pamby FBI guy who took the tape, it's his job to return that tape to those people. I don't know what he has to do that, but he should work his butt off because he's the one who took that tape. It's his butt ultimately on the ground because and in the line of fire as well, because he's the bottom guy. And as they say, stuff rolls downhill. I'm not going to deny that. He's the one that's going to get blamed. Nobody on top's going to get blamed at all. That's just life. So it's better that he confess. It's crazy. Leah, thank you for joining us.
Hey, sorry guys. I know I've been busy for a while. I am a little behind. So what's the topic?
Well, we're just talking right now. We've talked a lot about the abortion clinics that have just been firebombed, and now the FBI is doing nothing. They're stopping the prosecution of those those places that have been firebombed that are crisis pregnancy centers, and that's what's happening. The FBI has taken video tapes that would allow them to prosecute, and they're not allowing anything to be done. And this is across the country, and we just had there was a video of Reverend James Harden, which you can go back and watch later, of this, and that he's on a Tucker Carlson show and talking about it. I'm looking at these things. Like I keep saying, there are no innocent bystanders. The Bible clearly tells us this. We can't sit by and watch things happen. I was just telling my I teach kids on Wednesday evenings, and I was telling them there's no such thing And I says, well, here's an example of why you can't be. So I'm out one day, it's before I got married, and there's a car accident, and I see this guy get out of his car. You know, he's the one who hit her. And he's going over, he's yanking at her door, trying to get her out and screaming and yelling at her, blah, 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 blah. He's just being a jerk. I'm probably half his height, not half his build. I walk over there and get in between. Like, sorry, you can't bother this woman. Move away. Who the heck are you? I'm going to stand here until the cops come, and you're not going to bother this woman. So I suggest you go back. Now, I ended up doing this for 2 different women. While I was married, someone did that for me, for my wife. And you know what? I just thought, sometimes not refusing to be the innocent bystander pays off. The fact that somebody could have stood there and been there for my wife at that point, I was so thrilled to think that somebody could do that. I mean, my kids talked about it every time. They couldn't stop talking about that. None of them knew would stand up and help them. That's what being a Christian means. You stand up and you help someone, and it doesn't matter who's watching. It just matters that you're doing what God wants you to do. All right, I'm going to say goodnight early. God bless you all. Tune in to the Cross and the Crescent at 8 o'clock because there's a message coming out, and even I don't know what it is, but let's find out. God bless everybody.
All right, God bless.
God bless.